Hello, everybody. I am Jennifer McKenzie. I'm a K-12 district teacher librarian. I work in Siuslaw School District, which is located in Florence, Oregon, the beautiful coastline of the state of Oregon. I'm super excited to be here as a keynote speaker to share all about my work with Fulbright as well as my global collaborations. And I hope you find something that you can take away from this presentation and implement into your own learning community. So I'm specifically going to be talking about a project that I've been working on for the past year and a half called We're All in This Together. And then I'll be sharing a lot about the Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms program as well, because I'm a part of that and it has just brought so much joy to my life and my career. So I will be sharing the work of my team. So I have been working with Dennis Barrios, who's a Fulbrighter, and he lives in Moquegua, Peru. And then Ann Cummings is another one of my partners, and she's a sustainability teacher in St. Louis, Missouri. So I'll go over my why. Like, why do we need to be collaborating on a global scale and showing our students how to collaborate? I'll talk about the Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms program. And then I'm going to specifically talk about a grant that we received, which allowed us to work on our We're All in This Together project. And a lot of people always want to know about the logistics, challenges, and benefits of collaborating on a global scale. And at the very end, I'll invite you to participate in my project in a Kind Eyes Padlet activity. So here I am. I'm Jen McKenzie. This is actually my 21st year as a teacher, 21st year as an educator. I'm working on my doctorate in education and professional practice with an emphasis in social justice leadership. And over a year ago, I completed my Fulbright Teachers for Global Classroom stint. So I'm now a Fulbrighter. And then you can see a bunch of my other degrees there. I wanted to share a little bit about my journey as a practitioner, scholar, and leader. If you're at this GLOW conference, I'm assuming many of you have maybe followed some of the same paths that I have to be where I'm at today. So I actually, as a child, as a high schooler, I grew up and graduated from the geographical center of the North American continent. So I was the most landlocked a kid could possibly be. And all I wanted to do when I grew up was to travel the world and one day live near a coastline. And I always wanted to be a change maker. I was involved in student governments and all that stuff when I was younger. So after I graduated, I did join the Army. I was in the military for 12 years. I was a medical service corps officer. I lived and worked all over the country in Army hospitals. And one of my most memorable stints was working I was mobilized to Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C., where I did some acting command. And I got to care for wounded warriors as well as create poetry slams and use writing and arts to help heal wounded soldiers. After that, I came back and I got all my degrees in college, and I was an English teacher. Um, and I focused a lot while I was still in the English classroom. I focused a lot on service learning, oral histories. And my master's work then was actually investigating language and how language is power and using language to protect our teaching assistants at North Dakota State University. Um, then I moved out to the West Coast with my husband. I pursued another master's degree in gender studies, women's studies. It was a master's in interdisciplinary studies. So I was exploring how we could use educational technology to make people's lives better. And then shortly after that, in the middle of the pandemic, I moved out to Oregon, to the coastline. And that's when I pursued becoming a Fulbrighter. And then my Fulbright work actually inspired me to earn my doctorate. And that's kind of the journey that I'm on right now. So that's just a little bit about my background as an educator. And I said that I'm now here out in Oregon on the coast. Absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. This is a picture of my dog, Orion. He's a rescue from the Oregon Coast Humane Society, and this is our daily life. Like we get to go out to the beach and take the dogs for a run every single day. I am in a small learning community, so we have a total of 1,300 students and staff. And it's super, super beautiful. But the one thing that we struggle with is that we are rural and remote. We're literally on the edge of the continent, right? Um, so when I came to this learning community in the middle of the pandemic, I could see I had my little assessment tool. The district hadn't had a teacher librarian in over 20 years, so I could see what they were lacking in terms of curriculum and learning spaces. I could see what they needed, but when I started asking teachers in the learning community what they wanted, the number one thing people said they were missing was connections. We were still in the pandemic, we were still in distance learning. So that was my initial focus when I landed in Florence, Oregon. What you're looking at right now are our core library media science curriculum standards, okay? So we focus in the library. Certified teacher librarians focus on reading advocacy, information and media literacy, digital citizenship, and technology integration. And this is in my high school graduation picture with my cat, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about cats, and my love for animals is all part of this. And this was a thing that popped up when we were in shelter in place during the pandemic because our seniors graduating from high school didn't get their typical high school graduation. All of us were going through and finding our senior pictures and posting them online. So that's what that's about. So like I said, the community that I landed in, they were missing connections. So I went to my superintendent and I was like, hey, what if I start connecting with our Oregon Coast Humane Society? And what if I started doing virtual field trips with my cell phone, right? Cell phone and a selfie stick virtual field trips. And I did not know that these Oregon Coast Humane Society readings from the Catio virtual field trips would launch me into becoming a Fulbrighter. But that's what we did. I would show up every week at a different site. And this is my all-time favorite selfie stick because it's bendy and you can slap your phone right in it and you're off and running. So I would have over like, over 100 usually, at least 100 kids on a Google Meet on my cell phone. They were at home on their Chromebooks doing distance learning, and I was live running around town. And we would do a different virtual field trip every single week. And you can see all the different places that we explored. Anything with animals and nature is really popular in my learning community. So we did a lot of that. And then we were going to the water treatment plant and working with the city of Florence and like went out and toured one of the Coast Guard ships and all of these other really super interesting things. And then I started doing micro virtual field trips. So I take little samples, especially when we were out in nature and on the beaches and all that jazz. I would take little samples and then take it back and record me zooming in on the samples on the microscope. So we did uh, around town virtual field trips, micro virtual field trips. We were connecting with folks across the country and the globe on Zoom. And and then, yeah, I applied for a Fulbright. And so all those virtual field trips and emphasizing digital collaborations and digital engagement is what I led into my Fulbright for. And you can watch, this is a podcast that I did with Shannon McClintock Miller, who's like one of our national most well-known, innovative teacher librarian. She's K-12. And I happened to do a podcast with her while I was in the middle of that journey. And so you can go ahead and check out this podcast. It's linked in the slides. And then just last year, I did another podcast with Shannon McClintock Miller to talk about how all of those virtual field trips led to my Fulbright and all about that experience and like what we're bringing to our learning community and our students. So you can check out both of those podcasts. And then now I want to talk a little bit about the Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms program. There are so many different iterations of the program. The one that I did, I'm going to circle it with my mouse here. It was the Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms, and it's really designed for K-12 educators in the United States, where you don't have to take a leave of absence or a sabbatical to do your abroad travel and collaborations. So you do about a year online coursework with a cohort. And then that following summer, you're working on, I mean, like while you're doing your online work, you're doing projects, you're collaborating, you're learning to collaborate with other learning communities virtually. You're connected to a host country, and then you travel to that country in the summer for about 3 weeks, and you get to teach in another country and meet new teacher friends and students. It's super awesome. Um, Here is a snapshot of my cohort. There were about 70 of us working together, and that we're a part of this 114. So 70 of us plus some other folks from the US and administrators work with all of these other folks from around the country. So there are 401 of us who impacted 75,000 plus students that school year. How cool is that? And my country where I was stationed was Peru. And so here is a picture of the 70 of my cohort. There were about 20 some of us who went to Peru, and everybody else was sent to other countries. And so here's a picture of my cohort. We are standing in front of the U.S. Embassy. So we got to collaborate with the government, with the U.S. Embassy. Our 3-week trip looked like us flying into Lima, Peru first as a team to get situated. We were there for several days, getting acclimated, learning about the culture, learning about the food, learning about the government and the education system. And then we split out into travel partners, teams of either 2 or 3, into all these other little tiny learning communities around Peru. While I was there, and this is part of Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms, I captured an Instagram reel every single day. So I took clips and put together a 1-minute reel of every day on that journey. And that's part of Teachers for Global Classrooms. You're going to create a blog and a global learning guide, and you're going to collect artifacts of your experience for future Fulbrighters to take a look at. So again, here was my team, me, Dennis, and Ann, Team Moquegua. And here are some little samples of those reels that I collected. I think I'm actually going to pop out and play one. And I'm going to play the music. If the music doesn't come over, that's fine. But I'm going to talk my way through this reel as well. Okay, so I had my students create sticky notes to bring to Moquegua to share with the learning community there, and then I had Moquegua students send it back. I got to teach with animals. That's something different from a lot of our US classrooms. You can have animals everywhere. That was the team of teachers at the school that we taught. There were our Moquegua students reading all the kind notes and messages from our US Oregon students, and then they're creating sticky notes to send back. We got to experience a lot of culture. Students were so proud and so excited to share dance, food, heritage with us. Copper art is very, very specific to the region. We got to taste and enjoy so much lovely, lovely food. Um, yes, soccer or football is obviously popular everywhere. We got to tour tons of schools in addition to teaching at one specific school site for about 13 days while we were there. Um, this is a picture, that was a snapshot of one of the school's libraries, one of the school's learning labs, art class. It was just such a joy to meet Peruvian students and educators, and I'll pause it right there. And then the students that I taught and worked with created a sticky note mural to send back to the US. Like, how cool is that? So that's a little snapshot of my Teachers for Global Classrooms experience. Then, once you finish that experience, you are officially a Fulbrighter, and then you're eligible for continuation grants. So I was able to secure a global education grant. It's a grant of about $5,000. And with that money, it allowed Dennis, Ann, and I to continue to collaborate virtually as well as meet up in person. So I want to share what that collaboration looked like because it's something anyone can do even without the grant money. And I want to talk specifically about some of the logistics of what it means to collaborate virtually globally. So the goals of our global education grant were to connect our learning communities. We wanted to focus on language, culture, and amplifying voice using technology. And we also focused on sustainability because Anne's a sustainability teacher. And the tech side and the media literacy worked well because I am a teacher librarian and that's my curriculum. We use multi-genre writing to connect with one another. I used to be an English teacher, and I'm going to go over that because it's a fabulous way, and you can modify it to suit your needs. And then we were planting the seed for more connections the following year. So folks from my learning community that participated, so I'm one teacher librarian teaching 1,300 students. I don't see every kid every day, but I do see all students every single year when they're in the school district. So the partner teachers that I work with, Rafa Garcia was our woodworking teacher, and he also speaks Spanish. Kelly Dotson was our tag coordinator. So she helped me invite and find a lot of our high schoolers who participated in live Zooms. And then there's a list of my library dream team kiddos. And then we designed the project so that people could hop on and enjoy our live Zooms. But for those who couldn't make the live Zooms, they could also participate with their students asynchronously through the writing prompts. So I had two teachers specifically, and really it was like over 300 plus students who didn't get on the live Zooms with us, but they participated through writing. There's a picture of my high school squad. From Moquegua, Peru, we actually work with three different schools. So Dennis was our Fulbright partner, and when we were there in person, we met several other teachers. So we brought three Moquegua schools along for the journey, and there's a picture of one of them. And then Anne Cummings in Missouri, she had several partner teachers, and she was working with after school 4-H club students. So that was her team there. And there's a picture of them. Okay, so next I'm going to start talking about like the logistics of how we actually did this because that's what everybody always wants to know. So again, our collaboration was over a series of Zooms. And we had the groups who were participating in the live Zooms. You just saw all the group pictures. And then again, there were hundreds of students who were participating asynchronously. But for the live Zoom group, we did a couple of Zooms up front where it was just the teachers meeting. So the teachers from the three schools in Moquegua, teachers and partner teachers in Missouri, and myself and my partner teachers in Oregon. And we thought it was really important for us to go through the motions of collaborating globally on Zoom first. And we also asked all of our teachers to go through the writing process and create the multi-genre pieces that we were going to ask our students to do. So we wanted our teachers to get grounded and comfortable first before we looped in our students. And then we ended up doing 4 live Zoom sessions with our students. And then at the end of July, Anne and I were able to physically travel back to Moquegua to meet up with all of the teachers and students we had worked with. So that was our timeline. What I'm showing you next is just the lesson plan template for each Zoom. So every single Zoom session, this is what it looked like. We met for about 45 minutes. We found that, especially with middle schoolers and high schoolers, anything longer than that timeline was too long. We needed more time for the teachers, but a little less time for the students. So we would have our objective. We would always try to interject a little bit of English, Spanish language acquisition at the beginning of every session. We would spend plenty of time doing introductions every single session. We thought it was so important every single session to have each participant have their, you know, 10 seconds of airtime looking into the camera, saying their name, saying where they were from, and answering whatever our opener prompt was. We would go through the different objectives. We would introduce a multi-genre piece, and then the next session we would share out. Okay, so we were in some iteration of sharing out our multi-genre pieces and then explaining what the next one was. And then we were incorporating all sorts of cool technology that I'll talk about in just a little bit. So there's just another sample of our introduction slides. We learned, if you have not collaborated globally before, we learned a lot just about how to set up your slides if you're working in two languages. I would say most of our students from the US did not speak Spanish, like some knew a little bit of Spanish. And then all of the students participating, not all, most of the students participating from Peru, they knew a little bit of English, like their level of English knowledge varied, but they were bilingual. So you just have to be a little bit more mindful about Zooming when you're working with learning communities that speak different languages. So we would and I tend to speak really fast. So number two was hard for me. I had to remind myself to pause, speak slowly, and speak clearly. We let everyone know that Google Translate is the quickest, fastest way to get your translation. And then we reminded people how to use the translation features in Zoom. One of the biggest hurdles for us, I will mention, and for anybody collaborating globally, is collaborating across multiple time zones. So we had three different time zones. I'm in one, Pacific, Anne's in Central. Peru is typically in Central, but then they don't do daylight savings. So during the months of daylight savings, we were collaborating across three different time zones, which was more challenging than you would think. So this is an example of like how we would incorporate translation into our slides. As we were teaching, we found that it was easier to have all of the slides just needed to be translated, so people weren't having to flip back and forth between slides. And I also, before every Zoom session, I would send out all of the materials in advance so people could peruse stuff in advance if they needed to. Here's just a snapshot of there's me in Florence, there's Anne in Missouri. We were collaborating with a couple other Fulbrighters as well, asynchronously. And then our learning communities in Peru on the right. Moquegua is like almost not quite Tacna southern tip of Peru, but close to Chile. And you can see the other learning communities where some of our other friends were from. And then I really love this picture. My students really love this picture. We are obsessed on the coast in Oregon with the ocean and with animals and with whales and nature and wildlife. And my students just love noticing, like, hey, we are way up here on the North American continent on the coast, and we're collaborating with students on the South American coastline. Like they just thought that was so cool. And it was the first time for all of us, teachers and students, all of us. It was our very first live global collaboration. So one tool that many of you may be familiar with, we used WhatsApp as our primary mode of communication. WhatsApp is infinitely better than text messaging. You can easily share documents, text, call, all that jazz. So we invited all of our participants to communicate through WhatsApp, and I would email content out for our live Zooms as well as WhatsApp it to everybody. And I will tell you that WhatsApp got everyone's attention. Everybody got the messages through WhatsApp. Sometimes they didn't always check their email. So WhatsApp, if you're not using it, you should become familiar with that tool. This is a picture of our podcasting studio that we built last year in the high school. So I'm a district K-12 district teacher librarian. There's one of me, and I have three classified library aides, and I cover three buildings. I literally run 5 to 7 miles every day serving my buildings and teaching lessons. I have a flexible point of need schedule. So I have specific lessons that I plan throughout the year, and then I'm just up for grabs when teachers need me and want to use the podcast studio or want to amplify what they're doing in class with some technology. I'm available. And we built this amazing podcast studio and moved over 650 students through that podcasting studio last year. So we incorporated the podcasting into our project as well. And our technology goals, again, I'm a teacher librarian, so we're all about amplifying voice and introducing our learning communities to innovative tech they maybe aren't used to. And so we really wanted to incorporate video with our multi-genre, multimedia writing. And our goal was to ship virtual reality headsets to our Moquegua schools as part of our grant. It turns out that getting the VR into Peru was challenging. It's not as readily available. There are restrictions on shipping it. So we actually went back and reverted to the old school Google Cardboard just to bring that technology to each school that we worked with. And it was pretty cool. And then the biggest thing that all three learning communities became accustomed with was using the 360 camera to collect some cool footage. So we also brought to Peru, whoops, let me go back. We were going to be doing podcasting on site and we needed little mobile kits. So this was a fabulous little mobile setup right here. And then we played around with a couple of different setups when we dropped supplies at each school site when we visited, did our return visit. Okay, so let's talk about multi-genre writing. So we're doing Zooms, every couple of months doing Zooms and meeting live on Zoom. And then in between, students are working on writing to just share who they are. And I used to be an English teacher. I love the writing process. I love the research process. And I loved, instead of having my students do a full-blown like 5-paragraph research essay. They would still do the research, but then I would have them demonstrate what they learned through these creative multi-genre portfolios. So this is an example of a student who's researching Taylor Swift. And instead, well, you would still have to do that anchor essay. But instead of just reading that 5-paragraph essay, the learning was turned into an interview with Taylor Swift. And these are things that are based in reality, but then are fictitious or made up. This is a poem or a song that was made up about Taylor Swift. Here's a tour poster. Here's a biography. So students just turn their learning into creative multimedia products. Okay. So that's what we were asking our students to do. And whenever you're collaborating internationally with people who have different capacities for technology, my number one tip is that you're always going to use the easiest means of technology that works for all learning communities. So to collect all these different multi-genre pieces, we just plopped them all into a shared Google slide deck. And that's how students turn pieces in because we didn't have a common like Google Classroom to use. I offered a rubric for teachers who wanted to use it. And all of our multi-genre pieces were a Kind Eyes art piece, an About Me Canva infographic, a 1-minute Instagram reel, a My Community video, a sustainability map. And those were the pieces that we created together. So Once we actually started doing our live collaborations, these are some pictures from our very first live collaboration. So just like when we were in shelter in place during the pandemic, and you would be teaching class and students were at home, and everyone would want to like, grab their kitty and show their kitties in the camera. And it was super joyful. That's how our first Zoom session went between Missouri, Oregon, and Moquegua, Peru. We were getting to know each other. We were explaining the background of what we were going to be doing for the next several months. We were talking about the technology. And then all of a sudden, someone's cat pops up on camera. And we all got so excited. So everyone started cheering animals. On the left, I got a Unitree Go-To robot dog for my school district last year. So I had a student walk the robot dog in. And then Anne is a sustainability teacher and she has gardens and chickens and animals outside of her classroom. So we spontaneously, we did not plan it, but we're like, oh, dial into the Zoom with your cell phone and take us on a virtual field trip so we can go see your chickens, Anne. So we did these spontaneous cell phone and a selfie stick virtual field trips while we were all on Zoom in classrooms together. And that ended up being part of our jam for the rest of our Zoom sessions together. It was super cool and not planned and amazing. So now I'm going to go through the multi-genre pieces just very briefly. And this is where if you're wanting to collaborate with someone from across the country or around the world, all of these pieces could be easily adaptable. So the first one was a kind eyes piece. So this was asking people to either take photographs or draw or paint or do some creative interpretation of kind eyes. And by kind eyes, I mean whenever you're smiling or looking at another person with kindness, think about what happens to your eyes. They usually get kind of squishy and crinkly. And even if you don't know another person's language, kind eyes communicate kindness, right? And this was a really great piece because it allowed the asynchronous participation. So I am the current president of the Oregon Association of School Libraries, so the president of our school libraries for Oregon. I'm looped into a lot of national future ready librarian networks. And so I took this prompt and shot it out across the state and the country. And I mean, I think I had like over 2,000 kind eyes that I got back. And it was a really great way for other people to collaborate globally through artwork. And so we made these murals of just thousands of these beautiful kind eyes. And this was mine. So you were to draw your eyes or take a picture and then also share one wish for the world. So my wish was for global social justice and that all inhabitants on this planet feel seen, heard, and loved. And here's a couple more examples from some students. Look at Emmeline, age 11. I wish for everyone to be grateful for what they have. Lila, age 10. I wish for no more racism. And then Adelaide, age 18. I wish we could all love each other and that school was free for everyone. So we got all of these kind eyes from all over the place. And they're probably one of the favorite parts of this whole entire project. And I'm going to invite you all to participate in a Padlet of kind eyes at the very end. The next piece that we did, so multi-genre piece number 2, was a simple about me. So we prompted students. Most of our students in Peru and across the US were familiar with Canva and really using Canva on a cell phone. So most students did their about me's through Canva. And let me back up and say that the tech capacity of every learning community was completely different, right? So again, we had to create pieces that would work well for all learning communities, regardless of whether they had Chromebooks in the classroom or internet connection in their schools or not. A lot of schools, even if they didn't have one-to-one Chromebooks or solid internet, most students had cell phones, and most students in Moquegua many students were used to or knew how to use WhatsApp and Canva if they didn't have Google Classroom to share assignments with their professors or their teachers. So the About Me's were fun. There's Anne's About Me with lots of family pictures. Here's one of our students from Peru. That's their About Me graphic. This was a student's from Missouri. Okay, beautiful. Just a fun way to connect. Our third multi-genre piece, I feel like everyone was really getting into, and it was doing a 1 minute Instagram reel or a 1 minute video. I shared with you at the beginning of this presentation that when I did my in-person global adventure in Peru, part of being a Fulbrighter, part of the requirement of teachers for global classrooms is to document and post blog about your journey. And it's really fun to try to capture a moment in 1 minute. So this one was really fun. I'm not going to go through and play all of them. Mine, 1 minute was me on the beach with my dog and my husband. And that graphic isn't popping up, but our Moquegua friends, um, shared beautiful, fabulous little video clips. And then one of Anne's students from Missouri chose to just share a video leaving their house and riding the bus to school because that was another thing that students really enjoyed was just learning about other students across the globe, what their home environments and their communities look like, and what our schools look like. When we were out doing the cell phone and a selfie stick tours while we were in Zoom, and we would send people out to go see the chickens or send people out to take us on a tour around the school. Students love seeing how we all just live in different environments and our schools look different. And okay, that picture isn't coming through either, but that's okay. So our fourth multi-genre piece was an environment map, a sustainability map. And students could do this digitally or they could draw it, but sustainability is way more sophisticated than most people think. And so this had students thinking about where they lived physically, what the environment meant to them personally, emotionally, what the word home actually means to many of us. Um, and students embedded a lot of photographs into their environment maps as well. So I have presented about Fulbright and Teachers for Global Classrooms, and we're all in this together, our global collaboration at many, many, many conferences. At the very beginning of the slides, I had our a link to my bit.ly. So you'll get these slides. When you go to the bit.ly, it's going to take you to my link tree, and you'll have this slide deck as well as like the past year's worth of presentations that I've done. And then and I can pop in and show you. And towards the bottom are all my social media links. If you want to stay connected, or if you have questions, or if you want to collaborate with us in the future. Um, so I did my Fulbright stint. Then I collaborated for a year with Anne and Dennis. And then part of that grant that I got paid for me and Anne to return back to Moquegua last summer to continue the work. So we met up with the students we have been working with in person. That's this picture right here. And then plus we met like tons of more schools and students and other learning communities who want to be a part of this work. When we went and visited in person, we really focused on collecting oral histories or collecting interviews, which we are in the process right now of uploading to StoryCorps, which is an archive sponsored by the United States Library of Congress. It's free, it's open to anyone. You can create your own little recording hub. And when you upload interviews into StoryCorps, they are archived forever. So, and they're accessible to anyone around the globe. So that's kind of where we're leaning towards this year with our collaborations. There's there's one of the principals of the school using that old fashioned, which was awesome and worked, virtual reality via Google Cardboard. There's me, Anna, and Dennis. There are pictures of us presenting the 360 camera, which was a super awesome gift. So it was a bundle where it comes with the camera, the invisible handle, and a bunch of accessories. And that's also a part of our work this year is every learning community learning how to use that 360 camera to produce and archive more sophisticated multi-genre pieces. And there we are interviewing with students. And then we got to, because Anna's a sustainability teacher, we also focused on the environment, the school where we were working. They had just spent the past year building a garden. We got to link up with local beekeepers because Anne's a beekeeper. So the environment is definitely something that's super important to my learning community, Anne's learning community, and Dennis's as well, and something that we will continue with, that environmental piece of our global collaboration. So I did learn about a new tool this past summer when I presented at ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education Conference. And Shannon McClintock Miller, I've already mentioned her, but she has been collaborating with this company, Level Up Village. And this is the piece that I feel like we were missing for our global collaboration. We did not have access to like a global Google Classroom where all teachers and students could be collaborating on the same hub together and sharing pieces together. Level Up Village does just that. It provides almost like the asynchronous, synchronous, hybrid platform where you can get on and connect in a safe environment. And it also allows you to submit pieces and share pieces. And so this is something that I want to explore for this next year moving forward. And then finally, I said I would invite you to be a part of our project. You can go to this bit.ly or scan that QR code and I'll pop out and show you what that looks like. So um, you can submit your own kind eyes to our portfolio. So you'll take a snapshot, you can draw a picture, um, and you can pop them in here and then write your wish for the world. And I would love for you all to be part of this project. I'm archiving all the multi-genre pieces, all the kind eyes, etc., on a Google site so we can share out our work. Okay, and my last slide. Here's my social media contacts. Again, I'm a teacher librarian. I'm all about modeling how to be a good digital citizen and a global collaborator. So you can find me on all of those things. And I'll actually just pop out and show you my link tree. So there's a bit.ly that goes to my link tree at the beginning of the slides. At the top is my podcast with Shannon McClintock Miller that's talking all about this project and why it's so important for our students to be global collaborators and how global collaboration is a literacy skill that our students need in our increasingly global world that we're living in. And then if you scroll down, you can see all the different presentations I've done the past year, and my social media stuff is at the very bottom. So let me go ahead and stop my screen share. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I'm so sorry I could not be with you all live for the presentation, but I love collaborating. So please reach out if you want to collaborate, if you have any questions, if you need any of the resources that I shared, I would love to help you out. We are all better together. And thank you, Glo, for inviting me. It was an honor to be your keynote speaker.